In this episode of GamerHeads, we are going through our personal favorite retro games. We're also talking about the PlayStation Classic and Nintendo Switch online service. Plus, we are joined by Phil Strahl, aka the Pixel Prophecy, to talk about the current state of retro games. Get ready, because here's another episode of GamerHeads. And welcome to another episode of GamerHeads. My name is Roger, aka Rogue Leader 76, and with me are my co-host Christian,
aka Fulgan,
and my other co-host Blue,
aka Writer's View.
Welcome back, both of you. We have a jam-packed show. It is our retro show, if you will, because there's a lot of retro stuff in our news, and then our hot topic has to deal with retro as well, which you two will be running, and I will not be in that. So, good luck with that.
I'll need it. Trust us. You can trust us.
Okay. You know, because I'll dock it from your pay if I can't. So,
yikes.
Yeah, I've been meaning to ask you about a raise.
Oh, okay. Yeah. We'll have a lot of zeros. So
please don't take away one of my zeros, Roger.
One day maybe we'll get paid, but at this point, I actually this cost me more money probably than I don't make money on this. So anyway, welcome to the show.
That wasn't awkward.
Yeah, not awkward at all. So I have an icebreaker, and this also ties into the retro theme. What is your favorite retro game? And Blue, we'll start with you. What's your favorite retro game?
What counts as retro?
That is a good question. How about anything that's over 20 years old?
Ooh. 1998? That's the cutoff?
I guess. That doesn't seem retro to me, but sure. We'll say it.
Okay, well, I'm just going to go with the first thing that popped into my head. Did you guys ever play Wing Commander on the Super Nintendo?
Yes.
Not on the Super
awesome,
Nintendo.
Right?
It was awesome.
I loved it. I was so obsessed with that game when I was a kid.
Nice. So what systems did you have as a kid then?
We had a regular Nintendo and we had a Super Nintendo, and that was it.
Nice.
I mean, I say
awesome.
that was it. Like, those weren't good enough.
That was it.
I did not get
Nice.
into PlayStation or anything like that until I was in college, and I had friends that had them.
Oh. Interesting. What about you, Christian? What is your favorite retro game?
I think I mentioned this last podcast.
Oh, last podcast? Did we already have
one
this
of my
topic?
favorite games ever is Mega Man 2. I love Mega Man 2. I could play that indefinitely, and sometimes I do. The music's so great!
Some would say that is the best Mega Man.
Yep. Until 11 comes out.
I was going to say, until they play 11.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys play the demo?
Good. I did. And one complaint that I've seen people have is that when you jump in the door,
Oh, yeah.
it doesn't do that whole pause thing.
Mm-hmm. That's disappointing.
That is disappointing.
Like in Super Castlevania, where you jump and then do the whip down when you collect the thing.
Yeah.
And then you stay in the air. That's awesome.
That is awesome. My favorite retro game. Boy, I have a lot of games. I have a lot of retro games.
Boy.
I think I would have to say Super Castlevania. Was that retro? That's got to be retro enough, right?
Yeah, that's pre-1998.
Yeah, so that's my favorite. I know I've talked about that game before too, but I love that game. That game is so good. And I really wanted to beat Dracula at midnight, but I beat him at 10 o'clock on Halloween at night. And then my friend and I are like, well, what do we do now? We planned this whole event to happen at midnight.
Oh my goodness.
So we just hung out and ate. Yeah, exactly. We could start over. We had all this Mountain Dew and Doritos, and we were like, we're staying up all night. We're going to beat him at midnight. It's going to be so epic. And then we beat him at 10 o'clock. And I was like, okay.
Do you guys do the Mountain Dew and Doritos thing?
We did, not anymore.
That's awesome. Oh.
Yeah.
Do you ever do that, Blue?
I was more Coca-Cola than Mountain Dew. But,
Yeah. Yeah, there was Infinite Warfare was coming out, and I was picking that up day one because I think I mentioned before I pre-ordered it because you got the Modern Warfare Remastered early for free not for free. If you pre-ordered the Legacy Edition, I think it was. And so I had it pre-ordered and then I got it. But I wanted to embrace video game stereotypes for the Infinite Warfare release because I never drink Mountain Dew. I never eat Doritos. But that day I bought 3 bags of Doritos and I bought 20 things of Mountain Dew bottles. And I did not sleep that night.
Wow.
Wait,
did you have friends over or was it just you?
Nope, it was just me.
Oh my God.
Those were my college days.
Oh my gosh. You know what? Now it's not Mountain Dew anymore, right? Now it's Monster drinks because every time a new Halo game comes out or something, it's buy Monster and you can get a free code for blah 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 or whatever, and
Yep.
And Taco Bell. That seems to be the big thing now. Taco Bell and Monster drinks.
Yeah, they got Baja Blast at Taco Bell.
Oh, there we go. Yep. No, I don't do that now. I don't want cheesy fingers all over my systems. When I was a kid, I didn't care, and now as an adult, I'm like, there's a smudge on my Switch. I better
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm weird that way.
Well, and plus,
I'm weird that way too.
It's difficult to do that to your body past the age of 25.
That's true.
There are
That's
consequences.
True too. Yeah, Christian, keep that in mind, okay?
Yep. I've got 3 years left, so I'm fine.
Get all the Dorito and Mountain Dew in you as you can because
Yeah, I'll
it's
have
all
to whip the
downhill,
blender
man.
out.
That's disgusting. That's actually gross. All right, well, let's move on. On that note, let's move on to the news. Oh, God, I can't even go into this next item off of that. I can't transition to this.
Oh.
Well, we'll start with the lighter stuff first then. PlayStation Classic. Releasing December the 3rd. Will include 20 games, including Final Fantasy VII and Tekken 3, and the cost will be $99.
Mm-hmm.
So are you guys excited about this?
So excited.
Mm.
I've never owned a PlayStation 1.
Oh,
My
you
first-
really?
Yeah, my first was the PlayStation 2, and you could play the PlayStation 1 games on it, but
Mm-hmm.
for the principle of it, I've never owned one, and so I am mega excited.
Nice.
Awesome.
What about you, Christian?
I'm kind of excited. I mean, I did not own a PlayStation 1. I had a foster brother who did have one, and all he had was a demo disc and Driver. And I never
that was
really...
a bad game.
Yeah, I didn't play either of them very much, so I don't have a lot of nostalgia wrapped up in the original PlayStation. But the way I played a lot of my PS1 games was on my PSP because you could download those games. So that's how I played Final Fantasy VII. That's how I played Metal Gear Solid. That's how I played Symphony of the Night. So I think it's pretty interesting. $99 is probably a little pricey for me for something that I just think is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And the thing that interests me about it is the HDMI output. I think that's kind of interesting. But I watched the trailer and then they're really building it up. They're panning on this nice, sleek, sexy PlayStation Classic console. And then they show the gameplay and it's just kind of this ugly, blocky stuff. Hopefully it looks good in HDMI output. I hope that they can make it look nice and crisp like the SNES Classic and stuff does. But those PlayStation games are huge, so you can't just pop ROMs onto this sucker like you can with the SNES and NES Classics, I'm assuming.
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know.
I'll hold out hope.
I bet people will figure it out.
Yeah. There's people I've seen, they put a power thing into their SNES Classics where it plugs into the power port and then it also allows them to plug in a USB drive. That just blows my mind. I don't understand how that transfers data across that power port. I don't know. But yeah, they find ways.
Yeah. I just think that if it's a lot cheaper and easier way is just buy a Raspberry Pi. I don't
The thing that I like about the Super Nintendo Classic though is that I can use that Super Nintendo controller.
Yeah.
That feels great.
No, I bought the classic, the Super Nintendo Classic. I really like it a lot.
Yeah.
I didn't buy the NES Classic though, and there's actually quite a few of those on the shelves.
Yeah, no, there is.
I don't know. I guess I would have to find out what those other 20 games are. Like if there's Symphony of Night on there, and there's like other, what was that, Brave Fencer Musashi? If that was on there,
oh
my gosh,
I own
love
that game.
Oh, you do?
Yeah,
that's a great game.
it's all right.
It's a great game.
You're funny, Roger.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's funny. I feel like, and I know other people do this, but I feel like my desk is gonna be full of like mini consoles pretty soon.
Yeah.
Like it's gonna be crazy.
Yep.
We've got the NES Mini and the SNES Mini, and we'll have I already pre-ordered the PlayStation Classic.
Yeah.
So I know that, we're going to have to find shelves for all these, but I don't particularly care. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you...
Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I sent out a tweet that said, hey, I pre-ordered this. And it was funny how people wanted to argue about it. They're like,
really?
They're like, oh, holy cow, you idiot fanboys. You can, for $5, you can play all those games on your phone. And I was like, yeah, that's the same. Like
yeah. The experience is exactly.
Or I can do my little tiny phone. But whatever, that's cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for telling me how to spend my money.
I know. I always think that's funny when people like get mad at you for like, can't believe, what a fool. Can't believe you bought that. I'm like, well, okay. Thanks for your opinion. I don't care. I didn't ask.
It totally affects you.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
What I found interesting is that the controllers are not DualShock controllers, so you don't get the analog sticks. So I think that means no Ape Escape, because if I remember it, I think Ape Escape was an analog stick exclusive.
I think that was the first. Yeah, I think that was the first game that had the analog.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I was gonna ask Blue, how often do you play your NES and your Super NES classics?
Probably once a week.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know. Just have a fondness for those old games.
Wow. Yeah, I played the Super NES Classic when I first got it, and I haven't really touched it since.
Yeah, if you don't think that you're gonna play it, or if you're not as excited about the games or the price point, I totally understand why people are hesitant about it. But
yeah,
I mean, at the same time, I'm excited.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I guess I want to see what those other games are, but it's cool. I mean,
Parappa the Rapper is going to be on there, right?
Oh, that would be awesome, wouldn't it?
But they did already
love that
remaster
game.
it, so
That's true. They did.
I don't know.
Yeah. Speaking of retro games, Nintendo Switch Online, the system 6.0 came out. So that's awesome.
Yep.
I already subscribed to that.
I did too. Did you get the Nintendo, the NES app or whatever, or the Classic app or whatever they're calling it?
Not for my phone, no.
Oh, I mean, sorry, for the Switch.
Yeah, I did get that. Already went on, spent a whole night when I should have been doing other things, playing the game.
That's awesome.
And it's funny because I sent a tweet out about that, and people are giving me shade about that too. It's like, oh, I need to subscribe to a crappy service. I was like, what is it with people this week?
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, like I know a lot of people were like upset about the service, and I'm like, it's $20 a year. Like, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, if you're not gonna play the games, then whatever. But
yeah, I'm
gonna play them. So,
what games? What's your favorite game as part of that 20 lineup? 20 game lineup.
I don't know. I spent a long time playing the Yoshi puzzle game because I never played that before.
I haven't either. I'll have to play that.
I don't like it quite as much as Tetris or Dr. Mario. The controls are a bit different. It doesn't feel as smooth, but you'd have to play it to see. But it's still a lot of fun. I love me a puzzle game, so.
Nice. Christian, did you get the...
No, I did not. I think
didn't.
The thing that will make me get it at some point, possibly, is when I want to play a game online. But the way things are right now, I do not pick up my Switch very often because I've finished most of the games that I already have on it. So I'm just kind of waiting Like I got all the Mario Odyssey moons. I got all the Breath of the Wild shrines. I finished Bayonetta 1 and 2. I finished Rabbids, Mario plus Rabbids. And yeah, I pretty much finished everything I wanted to at this point.
Wow.
But I'll get Mario Party.
Yeah, I'm excited about that game.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about Diablo 3. I think I might get it. I might triple dip into that game.
There's rumors that Diablo 3 is going to be the next PlayStation Plus free game, Roger.
What?
You're the naysayer of PlayStation Plus games, but...
I'm not, but I already have that game, but...
Yeah. And also Neo, which is also a great game.
Oh, really? Oh, that would be awesome.
But that's like Dark Souls, Roger. You're going to get frustrated.
Oh, yeah. I won't like it then. That's a good
No.
point. Yeah, so that's... I don't know. I was playing a lot of Tecmo football last night. But they don't have the Packers.
Oh, I love Tecmo Bowl. Is that on there?
It is, yeah.
I have a cousin, and he came over one time, and he had an emulator on his laptop, and he's like, "Hey, have you ever played this game?" And I'm like, "What?" And he said, "Oh, it's called Tecmo Bowl. It's football, but it's like old school football." And he wasn't very knowledgeable in video games. He just had it on his laptop. And then I was like, "No, why does this matter?" And he was like, "Oh, we had this at my babysitter's. We played it all the time." And then the next 10 hours of our day consisted of nothing but Tecmo Bowl. I love that game.
10 hours.
Game's awesome.
That's
So-
insane.
Was it the first Tecmo Bowl?
Yes, it
Okay.
was. I
See,
love that game.
I enjoy it, but I will say, like, Tecmo Bowl, was it 2 or 3? It was way better.
Really? I'll have to
Or
try
Super,
it.
Super Tecmo Bowl was good. Was really good.
I just like the simplicity. It makes me enjoy it a lot more than something like Madden.
Yeah, it is very simple, but they don't have the Packers. I forgot about that. I was
Deal
hoping
breaker.
that maybe they did some updates. I know, right? Yeah. I know this is really sacrilegious, but I played as Chicago because I was like, "There's no other team." I know,
So you lost
I
right
know.
then, obviously.
No, actually, they have Walter Payton on the team. So
Oh.
I mean, not really, but I mean,
Yeah.
it is him, but it's not
Yeah.
really him, right? So
I think there's fan-made ROM hacks where they actually put in like modern statistics into that game, modern players.
that's awesome. That would be awesome. They had a Tecmo Bowl on the DS, I believe.
Really?
And I bought it used to play on my 3DS, and somebody went in and added all the Packers. I'm like, well,
Holy cow.
that's pretty cool.
That
So,
was
like,
nice of them.
yeah, it's like, yeah, exactly. It's like, well, there's an advantage of playing a used game.
Wow.
So I'll have to try out the Yoshi game. My wife loves Dr. Mario, and so at supper tonight, I said to her, I said, "Hey, do you know how Dr. Mario's on the Switch now?" And she said, "Are you challenging me?" I'm like, only if I can get like you at like level 5 and me at level 1. Then yes.
Nice.
Because she's really, really good. A quick funny story. Because she's really, really good at Dr. Mario. But when I was in college, there was this girl that I didn't date her, but we hung out. It was one date, and she said, "Do you want to play Dr. Mario? I'm really good at it." And I was like, "Sure." And I beat her, and I'm not good at Dr. Mario, and she got so mad at me. Yeah, she got really mad. And then that was the only date we went on. So, yeah. So if
Wonder
you play
why.
Dr. Mario, yeah, she said she was good. I expected her to be good. I'm not gonna if she says I'm really good at this game, then I'm gonna take it, seriously. My wife is really good at Dr. Mario, so
Oh, that's how
I
you
have to
choose your
play-
girlfriends.
That's right.
Mhm.
How good are
Can
you
you
at Dr. Mario?
Can you beat me at Dr. Mario? If so, I'm marrying you.
Oh,
I mean,
wow. I
No,
need to
I'm ready.
practice.
No, sorry, Christian. The deal's off the table. I mean, I'm already
Jeez.
married. I'm just saying that was my mentality. That's what I'm saying. Mm-hmm.
Don't give up hope, Christian. Or,
Thank you, Blue.
There's no daddy dating simulator here, Christian.
Come on.
Whatever that game was. Anyway, so the last news item that I have here, this is the one I didn't want to lead off with because I didn't know how to transition into this. I still don't know how to because it makes me sick. A 45-year-old man was arrested after allegedly threatening a 11-year-old following a loss in the video game Fortnite.
Mhm.
So, according to the police department in New York, in Huntington, New York, the child said he received threatening text messages and online voice messages on his Xbox from someone that beat him in Fortnite. Jeez. And now this guy is, the guy was accused of threatening to shoot him at his school. I should say the story came from USA Today. Yeah, so, I mean, obviously this guy is now spending time in jail. But what is going on? Oh, my God. Like, this just... Like, my kids are not... They're not old enough to play Fortnite. I would not let my kids play Fortnite. But, just bothers me so much. Like, what is wrong with people? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Screwed up.
And... If an adult is going to behave that way to a child anyway, I mean, you couldn't ask them to maybe, think about what you're doing. But I know that it's a concern on the minds of many gamers these days how gaming is perceived in the media and how they always feel that they have to defend themselves, that gaming doesn't make you violent. And then somebody goes and does something like this. And, of course, gaming as a whole is going to be judged by the worst people out there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So...
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. And that's always something that I always think about, too, is like, it's like, I don't know. It's just all the things that obviously, like, nobody pays attention to I shouldn't say nobody, but I mean, how much press does like Extra Life have? You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure it gets some press, but
yeah,
it's always these bad stories that kind of make the news more. But
I don't know.
Do you guys?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Blue.
Oh, I was going to say that perhaps as a community, gamers, it would be nice if we could come together and do what we could to perhaps counteract things like this happening and make sure that the good does get out and reach people, as opposed to, petty infighting that might happen over this and that, and then we can't figure out why the media portrays us as they do.
Yeah. I was going to say that one thing that I want to do this year is Extra Life, so we should talk about that. Do you know what Extra Life is, Blue?
I don't.
Oh, Christian, do you know what Extra Life is?
Yeah.
So it's an event that is put on it's put on by an organization where they raise money so you can get pledges from people. You can participate by like doing streams of games. It doesn't necessarily have to be video games. A lot of people do video games, but you can stream your gameplay, and then you get pledges from people, and then all the money that you collect go to the Children's Miracle Network. So I would like to participate in that this year.
Really cool.
Yeah, it's cool. There's a lot of different gamers out there. Usually it happens the first weekend or second weekend in November, something like that. So
yeah. Do you guys ever get angry messages or voice messages from people while you're playing games?
Oh, do you?
Do you ever get that, Blue?
I never play online, if we're being honest,
Good.
for reasons,
That's good.
exactly like that.
Yeah. I do it. It's kind of amusing sometimes. The recent Call of Duty games, they did this genius thing where after you kill someone, you can hear whatever goes into their mic for like the next 2 seconds. It's wonderful. So you hear all kinds of like, yeah, it's wonderful. So you hear all kinds of like, dang it. People getting really angry. Like the Blackout bait, I heard a lot of that. Or there was one time I got this message from a guy because I played a lot of Battlefront 2, the most recent Battlefront 2, because that's one of my platinum trophies. And one of the trophies is getting to the max level. And that was a time investment and a half. But in order to get to the max level, you had to get XP. And the amount of points you got in a match directly correlated with how much XP you would end up getting. And the best way to get those points was to just immediately go into a starfighter at the beginning of the game and like never get out of a starfighter, always be in one of those, and then just rack up points by like shooting guys on the ground or like shooting starships, because there's AI starships when you're in a starship and they'll give you a lot of points. And so you'll just be like at the top of the scoreboard with 0 kills, and then someone will be in like second that'll have half your score with like 58 kills. It's amazing. But anyways, I got really, really good at just picking people off the ground. And then I got a lot of messages of people saying, stop being a bully, play the objective.
That's funny. No, I don't play those types of Call of Duty games online. I do play. This is So I usually play when I play like I mentioned this before. I think in a previous episode. But when I play games like Elder Scrolls Online, I always play as a female character because I don't feel like there's enough female lead characters in video games, strong lead, female lead characters. So I make a female character and I get hit on constantly by people.
That was going to be my next question is how do people treat you when they think you're a girl?
Yeah, I got marriage proposals because you can get married in Elder Scrolls Online. I'm like, I'm not marrying anybody. All right, I wanted to
hard to get.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I wanted to make a sorcerer. I wanted to make a female sorcerer that was gonna be awesome because she's such a cool character. Yeah, and when I would play DC Universe Online, I'd make a female character on that too, because again, I wanted to make a strong female character, and I just, people play so, God, I hate, I will say, come on, people, if you're playing online games, just, treat people with respect. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
You don't have to be nice, but just don't be mean.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you don't have to be overly nice either, like asking somebody on a date. It's really weird.
Yeah.
So, anyway. Let's then go into the... Oh, I'm sorry. Did you guys have any other news items before I move on to the next segment?
No. I'm going to have to start coming prepared with news items.
That's okay. Right? 5 minutes before we record, I'm like, okay, what's going on in the news?
I could give you your daily dose of PC news for the day.
Oh, there we go.
Because we talked about
your PC news of the day.
That's a good intro.
Thanks.
You should sound clip that. Use that every day.
Yeah.
Even when we don't talk about PC news. But a few weeks ago, I talked about the GeForce RTX cards.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they are out in the wild.
The reflective or whatever. Yep.
Good with reflections. They're out in the wild now, and reviews are out for them. And apparently, they are slightly better than the last ones. So there you go. You do not need to waste $1,200.
I was gonna say they're not worth the $1,200, huh?
Yeah, the reflection tech is largely regulated to RTX developer-centric settings. So the developers have to implement RTX graphics settings, and in its current state, there are no games that currently support it. So it seems like they're kind of holding a lot of that stuff back to reviewers because I guess it's not exactly ready for the prime time. And I'm not sure if the cards have actually made it into the wild yet. There's like the first year of a graphics card launch is like rife with scarcity. It's kind of hard to come by one of those cards, and they're ridiculously expensive anyways. And I'm not going to get one. But I think it's cool that it makes other cards more affordable.
Didn't I say that? Didn't I say that when we talked about that? I said how many games are actually going to implement, this reflective,
Yep, right now, absolutely zero.
Yeah.
But Battlefield 5 will supposedly get it, but that was delayed till November. And Shadow of the Tomb Raider is out, but that will get it at some later unspecified date.
So save your money at this point.
Yeah.
That's our PC news of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else, Christian?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. So then let's go into the games that we're playing, and then we'll take a break, and then we'll get into our hot topic. So, Christian, we'll start with you. What games are you playing right now?
Unfortunately, I only really have one game to talk about this week, which is sad. Yeah. But it is my 80th Platinum. I'm happy to say it is Platinum number 80. And that game is A Hat in Time.
Yay.
Have either of you guys played or heard of A Hat in Time?
No.
I've heard of it. I have not played it.
You've heard of it? Okay, so it is a backed Kickstarter, and it successfully made its way out of Kickstarter.
Wait, is it a Mario ripoff?
I wouldn't
call it a Mario
Odyssey
Odyssey ripoff?
No, it came out before Mario Odyssey.
No.
Roger, come on.
Just...
But yeah, it came out on consoles after Mario Odyssey, which is kind of sad because it just kind of went out to pasture. But A Hat in Time is a extremely wholesome, charming, and adorable 3D platformer. Like you're saying, Roger, is very similar to like the early 3D Mario games. There's a lot of Mario 64 and Super Mario Sunshine DNA in there. Because there's different, I believe there's 4 different worlds that kind of switch up the gameplay style, but the main ones are segmented very similarly to Mario 64, where you'll try and get the timepiece instead of the star because they're timepieces and they're hourglasses and they're fuel for your ship. And you need to get all 40 of those and then you win. And so, yeah, the beginning of a level is kind of like the flyby, kind of like this Mario 64, where you go into a level, it's a new instance, and then it'll do the flyby and show you what's different in this instance. Like, the first area you go to is Mafia Town, because the Mafia stop you. And they're just these bald dudes with mustaches.
Wait.
And
I
Russian
thought this
accents.
game was like a magic game. I thought this was like you were like a wizard or something, no?
Nope. You're just a cute girl with a hat, and her name's Hat Girl, and it's awesome.
Oh.
And, yeah, it's really cute. It's really fun. It's very lighthearted. I liked it a lot. The thing that kind of set it apart to me was I played it on PC initially, and it was after I had 100%ed Ukulele on PC, and that was a very largely unpleasant experience. I would not recommend Ukulele, but
On the PC
I was
or overall.
Overall.
Okay.
It's probably better on the PC than it is on console.
Wow.
Because I was playing it at 60 frames. I don't believe it runs at 60 frames elsewhere.
No, I don't.
But anyways, I played A Hat in Time at first on PC, and just jumping, I immediately knew. As soon as I saw those jump animations, felt how that jump felt, I was like, okay, this game is way better than Ukulele. This is like the 3D platformer I wanted when I heard they were making Ukulele, and I'm going to not play it on PC anymore because I wanted the trophies to motivate me. I wanted to be able to get the trophies while I 100%ed it, because my 100% PC Ukulele save is sitting there and there's no trophies for it. I could have had 81 platinums at this point, but I chose the wrong path. Anyways, this A Hat in Time game just feels great to be jumping. There's a jump, a double jump, and then you can do this air dive, and the dive feels fantastic. And what I really like about that air dive is that the levels aren't completely structured around it. It's very similar to Mario's hat throw, where you kind of get in a rhythm of Mario jumping, throwing the hat, and then you dive to the hat, bounce off of it, do another hat throw, and then do another dive, and that just increases your reach just significantly. And in A Hat in Time, it's the level design and platform design is very similar in that things are designed around your jumps and double jumps, and they're not designed around your dive jump. So when you dive jump, it feels like you're just bypassing complete sections of the level because you're mastering kind of that technique, which is similar to Mario and the hat jumping. Wow. And it feels great to just like burn through these levels, just jump around and get to the end and get that timepiece. Another interesting thing about A Hat in Time is that the 4 different worlds are very different in gameplay. So the first one is kind of traditional Mario 64, but you'll get to another one that's like segmented by missions, which is interesting. Like one of the missions is just like delivering mail to people. And then you'll get to another one that's segmented by like getting points and like playing these like little games on the side, or there's one that'll be like a stealth mission, which is different. And then there's this one world that's just this big open area. And so that one isn't divided into segments like your typical Mario 64 game is. And they just have a lot of variety in there, which is really unique and interesting. And I think it both goes for and against this game because they put so much in there that not all of it is as good as just the core platforming. Like the stealth section is kind of slow paced. It's probably not the best thing in there. Or there's a couple missions like one you just got to deliver mail to people and it's, you just got to get through it. But the game definitely knows that its platforming is its strong suit, so it doesn't try too hard to prop itself up with variety like needless vehicle sections that are in every other 3D platformer from the 90s. So I really appreciated that. There's a lot of platforming to do, and it all feels fantastic. And the game is a very nice, sweet length. Like, I 100%ed it. Probably took me 20 hours tops. Okay. And it was just a really enjoyable experience. I would definitely recommend A Hat in Time.
Nice. I'll have to check that game out. That game piqued my interest, and then I just, I forgot about it. So,
music's really good.
Yeah,
voice acting's really good.
How does it compare to the story of Spider-Man?
The story of Spider-Man? I probably liked the Hat in Time story more than Spider-Man because it was less obtrusive.
I think there's a lot of stories you like more than Spider-Man's story.
Yeah, you're probably right.
What about you, Blue? What have you been playing?
This week I tried Axiom Verge, finally, for the first time.
Oh, cool.
I love it. It is so cool.
Would you say that is a Metroid-type game?
Yeah, a Metroidvania platformer. And every time I try one of those games, I'm reminded why I love that genre so much. Because I love just exploring on my own, discovering things on my own, not being told, what to do or led by the hand or anything. And I know that frustrates a lot of people because you can get lost. You don't always know what you're meant to be doing or anything like that. It doesn't bother me at all. I really love those types of challenges. And so I really love that game. I love the music. I love the retro design. The controls feel really good. I don't have anything bad to say about it.
Wow.
Nice. So you liked Hollow Knight a lot too, right?
Yes, that was the other thing I did this week is I was like, okay, I'm at 94% completion. I have got to write this review. I've promised it like 4 months ago. So I finally went and I beat the end boss. But here's the thing.
Nice.
There's actually a secret real end boss. And I didn't get him. And I was like, crap, what did I miss? So now I'm like going back through, I'm starting some of the DLC stuff, and I'm not going to quit until I get the real end boss.
Nice. I'm not very far in that game. I it's a good game. I just haven't played much of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. I have not played Axiom Verge at all. I really should, because it looks like a great game, and I like that genre as well. I should really play that game.
Totally.
Anything else, Blue, that you've been playing?
That was my week. It was Yoshi and Axiom Verge and Hollow Knight.
Nice. For myself, I've been continuing with my adventures in Super Dungeon Tactics. In fact, I will have the review up probably by the time this podcast airs. I should have the review up on our site for the game. So I'm enjoying my time with that game. It's a fun game. And then I can talk about the other game that I've been playing, and I have to review, which is The Gardens Between. Yeah, that game is really... that game is good. Have you heard of this game at all, Blue?
I watched a playthrough of it earlier this week, and it's gorgeous. I just don't know what to think about it.
Yeah, the game sucks you in right away in the beginning, and I will say it's like so intriguing with the characters and what's going on. I already have my theories. I haven't beaten the game yet, but I have my theories of what's happening. And the developer actually is going to be on our show the 30th, so next week. So that's awesome.
Oh, cool.
So it'll be fun to have him on and talk about the game. But yeah, I've been playing on the Switch, and is it just on the Switch right now, or is it on other systems as well?
Other systems as well.
Yeah, okay. But yeah. Oh yeah, because it's on PS4 too, and I think Xbox as well, right?
Chris,
Yeah,
do
that
you
sounds
just
right.
have like this encyclopedic knowledge of
He does.
games are available on what's it? Because you just knew that off the top.
I don't know. I guess so. Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. I mean, it's coming out soon, so I'm kind of aware of what systems it's going to be out on.
Yeah. Well, it's out on the Switch now. I'm not sure if it's out on other systems yet. So
Yeah, it's a fun little puzzle game.
yeah, I like it a lot. And then I played some Tecmo Bowl, like I mentioned.
Yeah. Love Tecmo Bowl.
You know what's great about that? I will say this. The other thing I like about the NES classic games on the Switch, you can play online with people. But my favorite part is, it says in there, like, and you can voice chat with your friends if you have the app. I'm like, oh, come on, Nintendo. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like just like you just threw salt in the wound of that one. Like, you have the app, you could. Oh, come on, knock it off. But yeah, we should play a game of Tecmo Bowl.
Yeah.
We can't play 3 players, but we should like do
That's
a round
okay.
robin.
That would be
you guys
awesome.
go ahead, and I will cheer for you.
You don't want to play as the Vikings or as the Bears? Because those are the only 2 teams from the north that are in the game.
No. You want to do Dr. Mario round robin, though? I'm in.
Okay.
Ooh.
All right. Ooh. Are you good at Dr. Mario?
I don't know. I'm afraid to say now. I mean, I feel like okay, so one of my friends on Twitter is doing this kind of retro game challenge. It's called the it's Boss versus Noob. You can look him up on Twitter, and every week he posts a new retro game, and you go and you see who gets the highest score. So I got 3rd for Dr. Mario.
Oh,
I don't know
wow.
if that
Wow.
makes me good or not, though.
Are there only 3 people playing? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Wow, sick burn, Roger.
Yeah. that
way to
one's
burn
been
your
staying for a
co-host.
while. No, there was way more.
No, I will say I'm not good at Dr. Mario. I apologies to that girl that I dated, and I beat her at Dr. Mario. She thinks she's good. I'm not good at Dr. Mario. I'll admit I'm not good at Dr. Mario, but I enjoy playing Dr. Mario. So, I just wish that there was an easy way to share friends codes on the Switch, because that is like the other most ridiculous thing. We always joke about this, that you see a friend come up on the Switch and you're like, hey, we're playing a game and there's nothing I can do about it. That's awesome.
Yeah. I'm a sucker for chasing high scores. I have gone to ridiculous lengths just to get a better high score. Yeah, like if it's better when it's a tight-knit group of people that I know, like when it's a small pool of people that I actually know, instead of just some impersonal leaderboard where someone's always going to be better than me anyways. Like Flappy Bird, I was determined to get the best Flappy Bird score in my school. Did you guys ever play Flappy Bird?
No.
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 I got to 409, I believe it was.
Sounds like grandma.
Yeah. It was a very difficult game that really tested my thumb endurance and concentration skills, and I'm glad to say I persevered.
Speaking of high scores, congratulations, Christian.
Thank you.
Speaking of high scores, did you guys see that the high score leaderboard for the Video Kid? There are still people like beating each other in that competition. It's crazy. So we started a competition, right? And that ended 2 weeks ago or so. But there are people that are like, I want to be number 1, and I think the top score is like over 65,000 right now. That is insane. That is insane. I think they're getting to the point where they pretty much are looking to see what the ultimate score can be. If you have not played that game, The Video Kid, it is out on the Switch and Xbox and Steam as well. You should go check it out. It's really fun.
Yeah.
All right. So then what we'll do here is we're going to take a break. And then when we come back, Christian and Blue will be talking to Pixel Prophecy, our guest this week. And they'll be talking about why retro games or why retro style is so popular right now. So stay tuned for that.
It's 7:55. I'm late for Jessica.
Are you 80s enough? For the Video Kid Challenge? Survive your video round with just one life.
Take that, butthead.
And hundreds of ways to die. Save Jessica and win the game.
Meet me at the park at 8, okay?
And be amongst the best of the best.
Can you handle the Video Kid Challenge?
Out now on Nintendo Switch, Xbox One, and Steam.
Hey, it's Carrington from Real Dudes Podcast, and with me I have some fantastic co-hosts. Guys, why don't you introduce yourselves?
This is Andrew coming to you from Lynchburg, Ohio.
This is Cody coming from you also from Ohio.
And this is Kyle coming to you straight from the armpits of West Virginia. We are an indie gaming podcast. We all share a love for games. And you can check out our show on Podbean. Just search for Real Dudes Podcast. You can also find us on iTunes, Google Play, really any of the podcasting outlets that you like to use. Again, that is Real Dudes Podcast. Be sure to check us out on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. If you love video games, you will love our show.
Do you like video games? Do you like to read? Alright, guys, I know that those two things usually don't go so well together, but my new book, The Minds Behind the Games, Interviews with Cult and Classic Video Game Developers, is kind of like an ESPN 30 for 30 collection of interviews with some of the coolest creators in video game history. We're talking iconic games, Deus Ex, Mortal Kombat, Wasteland, NBA Jam, not so iconic, E.T., Night Trap, indie games, Pro Wrestling X, Towerfall. If you love video games, you will love my book. If you know nothing about video games and want to get in the know, read my book. It's available wherever fine books are sold: Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, Walmart, and of course my site, patrickhickeyjr.com. It's an awesome book. I had a ton of fun writing it, and simply put, if you want to get in the know and you want to find out stuff that's not even on Wikipedia, check it out. You won't regret it.
Do you remember the days when console games were pure simple fun? No loot crates, season passes or crowdfunding. You just paid for the game and it was yours to keep. You didn't have to sit through hours of boring cutscenes, and there were no loading screens to keep you from the action. At Four Horses Games, we remember those days and we aim to bring them back. Miles and Kilo, our latest release on the Nintendo Switch, is pure action from start to finish. Run, jump, slide and swing your way across 36 action-packed levels as you and your dog try to escape a haunted island, battling bosses along the way. Still need more? 20 tough achievements and a time attack mode keep you going that extra mile. Reviewers are saying that Miles and Kilo is a must-have title. Available now on the Nintendo Switch and coming to other consoles later this year.
Welcome back to this episode of GamerHeads. Roger is not with us anymore. Rest in peace. Not really. He's just gone temporarily. He will be back next week. And when the boss is away, we come out to play with Phil Strahl from the Pixel Prophecy. Thanks so much for joining us, Phil.
Oh, thank you for having me. Salutations.
Where do you hearken from, Phil?
Oh, this is a good question. No, actually, I'm from Austria, Europe, and right now I think I'm coming from the dark ages of Pixelania, because I just love retro games, and still recently I just played GTA again, the first one, so I'm all in the mood for today's talk.
Yeah, and Blue's back with us, of course.
Hey.
But Roger's gone.
Roger's gone.
But we've got the dream team here today to talk about retro games. And Roger wanted us to talk about why is retro in right now. So I figured a good way to start this conversation out would be to define what we consider as retro, at least within the confines of this conversation. So, what is retro?
As for me personally, retro is anything that looks like it doesn't belong to what currently is going on with the AAA stuff. So anything that they don't feel they could touch either in genre or graphics or appeal, for me, this is retro. I start with that.
Yeah, that makes sense. What would you say is retro, Blue? What feels retro to you?
I feel like I am more likely to judge it based on what I played as a child versus what I played as an adult. So, like, to me, I don't feel like the GameCube is retro, even though it's quite old now, objectively. But it doesn't feel retro to me because I played it so much as an adult.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm a merely 22 years old, so I pretty much grew up playing the N64, which some people didn't play. I'm sure Roger didn't play it until he was well into his 30s. So that's awkward, I guess. But I think for the purposes of this conversation, Roger stated earlier in this podcast that for these conversation purposes, we're going to make the cutoff 20 years ago, so we're going to say 1998. And if you say anything after 1998, that's totally fine because it doesn't really matter. But
cool.
We can do N64, PlayStation 1, and back. And if you talk about GameCube, that's totally fine because I grew up with GameCube too.
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound fair?
Sounds fair.
Yeah, I grew up with the GameCube with Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and Scooby-Doo game and what else? Like a demo disc where I played a lot of Sonic Adventure.
Oh, the good one.
Yeah, the good one. Well, anyways, I guess the first question I had for you two was about Nintendo kind of alone pushing for the retro resurgence in like innumerable ways. Because they've got their previous virtual console that they pushed a lot, but now they've got their new online service with Nintendo Classics and their incredibly successful mini consoles that are being kind of copied by other companies. So why do these major video game companies tap into their older titles so often?
Well, from my perspective, because they can. I think a lot of kids who grew up in the 80s or with these kinds of consoles, after the video game crash, I mean, there weren't any or many. So I think if you're having a Nintendo, or NES or Super Nintendo or GameCube, or not GameCube, what's the Sega one? The Genesis, right? It's called in the US. Yeah, I think there is not so much out there, and everyone knows these. So I think that Nintendo is pretty wise into tapping into their own back library and still selling us the same old games for like $5 a pop. I mean, now with the subscription service, I think it's like 20 games at the start on the Switch. Is that correct? Something
that sounds
like this.
Right.
So I think that's fair, but I try to stay away from Nintendo with their virtual console because, in my opinion, it was just a little bit overpriced. But still, I think. Yeah, like I said, it's everyone knows these games, and Nintendo, of course, has discovered that they're sitting on a treasure trove of instant nostalgia, right? And so they can sell like Super Mario stickers with the Mario sprites from the Super Mario World, and someone would buy them. People like me would buy them. I still have them here on my on my desk, actually. So it totally works. It totally works.
Yeah, definitely. What do you think, Blue? Why do you think that all these game companies keep on re-releasing their games and now Sony's going to join the fray with their mini console?
I think Phil really knocked it on the head, but also I'll go ahead and expand on that because if you remember being a kid, you go and you look at all the video games available to buy, and then you're like, "Oh, I want that one and that one and that one," and then your mom says, "Okay, pick one," and you're like, "Oh my god!" So, I don't know about everybody else, but I know at our house, we didn't have a ton of games. Like, you bought one, and then you played the crap out of it. And then
that's true.
You didn't get new games often. So, you might go to your friend's house and sample new games, but by and large, you weren't able to play anywhere near the number of titles that was available from Nintendo and Sega and all that. And so now, with the virtual consoles and the things like the Nintendo Mini and all that coming out, you finally have a chance as an adult to like go back and fulfill these childhood dreams of playing all these games that you couldn't because they were all like $60 each, and your parents are going, "No way."
Yeah, that definitely makes sense.
Yeah,
and I think a lot of these companies just re-releasing their old stuff is kind of a small risk to make that can pretty much return pretty easily as far as like the company itself is concerned, as far as their stockbrokers are concerned, because they just gotta toss some money and be like, okay, here, put this out on the PS4 now, and then they figure it out and then they get it running, especially considering a lot of the video game hardware these days is pretty similar. in terms of the x86 architecture, and you can get something running on a PS4 and then pretty easily get it running everywhere else, or on a PC and get it pretty easily running on anywhere else. I mean, those are assumptions, honestly, assumptions, but when you've got a big team behind it, I'm sure it wouldn't take that much effort. And we're seeing PS2 games on PS4. We're seeing like Square putting out like all of their games on Switch now because they're on PS4 and Xbox, like Final Fantasy X, 10-2, 7, 9, and not 8 for some reason because they want everyone to forget 8 existed.
I liked 8, but
yeah,
Must be
kind
the
of
only one.
the Final Fantasy game that time forgot.
Well,
but anyways,
and
go
next
ahead,
year
Luke.
is the 20th anniversary of 8. So who knows? They might be
Is it
planning
really?
something big for the 20th anniversary.
Ooh,
Oh my
interesting.
God, I'm old.
I know, right?
I believe Final Fantasy VIII has a Steam version, but I do not believe it is as well polished as the 7 Steam version or the 9 Steam version, which was released not too long ago.
I haven't looked, but I'm pretty sure that I have it on my pile of shame. It must be in there somewhere. I think I've bought all the Final Fantasies. But it's like, just like Blue said, nowadays you can afford all those games, all the games you missed out. And I recall back then when I wanted, when all my classmates said, yeah, you should really get Final Fantasy VII, and I could only afford 1, and I went to the store, and of course 7 was sold out. I was sitting there, Final Fantasy VI or Final Fantasy VIII? So I went for 8, and later I went for 6. So statistically, I played 7. Somewhere in between. So
by the law of averages.
That's hilarious. Yeah. Well, besides just like larger studios putting out things that kind of appeal to the retro market, why do you think indie games or independently developed games also kind of frequently utilize the retro game frameworks?
I think it's also has to do with nostalgia. Like I said, if it looks like Mario and if it walks like Mario, well, then it must be kinda like Mario. And for indies, also, I think it's much easier to start with something that looks like let's say a AAA production from way back. You can do this with a very small team, and it looks and sounds, just like it. Maybe even better. I mean, if you look at Owlboy, for example, it's just crazy, the production value. If this game had come out like 30 years ago, it would just scored a straight 100s or 10 out of 10s, I think, just because it's so polished. And but still, with today's sensibilities of how a retro game should feel like, it's quite interesting, because if you go back and actually play games from that area, oh boy, you're in for a rough ride, because everything that we've come to accept for just things like checkpoints or some kind of saving system. I mean, those games back then were so punishing. So I think the indies, like I said, I'm leaning out of the window saying it's cheaper to produce, but we all know animating a 2D sprite is a lot of work compared to just making a 3D puppet jump around.
Yeah.
But still, I think, it taps into the nostalgia, because who buys indie games? It's not the 14-year-old kid who keeps waiting for the next Call of Duty or FIFA. I think it's people around later 20s, early 30s, and who fall exactly in that time frame, who were kids when that kind of graphics was on vogue. So I think maybe this also has to do with something, that there are just so many fertile grounds for retro-looking indies.
Definitely.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And I think I would take it a little bit farther from just saying the audiences of that age to where they remember playing games like that when they were a kid, but also the developers remember playing games like that when they were a kid. And so
absolutely, yeah.
I think that the great thing about indies is that they can be complete passion projects. And so then you can get these little teams together and you can go, let's create the ideal game that we would have wanted to play when we were a kid. And so then they can go and kind of create these wonderful, 16-bit looking creations that are marry the best of both worlds. Like you were saying, they've got the wonderful nostalgic graphics, but then also those nice things like the controls are tighter and they've got a save system and all this kind of stuff. So I think it's very much a nostalgia trip.
Yeah, with the passion projects, it's finally feasible nowadays that you can do games that were just like Nintendo games, big RPGs or something. You can really do this now, and you don't have to dig into assembler code on some 6502 processor or something. It's really feasible to do this and achieve the same kind or even better kind of quality.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like that point, Blue, that you were talking about, where a lot of these things can be passion projects because someone played a game and they wanted to make a better version of it. Like Stardew Valley, for example, is Harvest Moon, but they made it how their ideal Harvest Moon game would be. Or like Shovel Knight was like a NES platformer, or The Messenger is like an NES platformer. It's very interesting how companies now, they can take their limited resources and, like you were saying, Phil, make a video game that would be up to AAA standards 20 years ago, but also do it feasibly and with a small development team and within a reasonable amount of time.
Unless you're doing Owlboy.
Yeah, unless you're doing Owlboy. Did either of you guys play Owlboy?
No,
I didn't, no.
No, I didn't.
Oh, me neither.
Oh, God.
That sounds like something we need to do.
Yeah, I absolutely wanted to. I've heard great things about it.
I've seen some people just play it, and it just looked so gorgeous. And for me personally, I don't think I would enjoy the kind of puzzles or the kind of combat, but it's so gorgeous just to look at, and the music and everything. It's a game where I can sit back and just watch it being played and still have my fun.
Yeah, totally.
And that's actually a really interesting point,
yeah, go ahead, Blue.
As because with YouTube and Twitch these days, I think that how your game looks when it's being streamed is a big consideration.
Oh, yes, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. You need your game to look good.
And to be interesting, not just to play, but just to sit back and watch.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Yeah, that's a huge consideration. What I also find interesting is how some of these big companies, like Sega is the main example that comes to mind, where they put the money into a smaller team to develop something that's like more indie in scope, but actually really great, like Sonic Mania, because that's like a 2D Sonic sequel, but they didn't have to pour as much resources into it. And because of that, and because they had fans on it to develop it, I feel like many people say it's the best Sonic game yet.
Oh, absolutely, I agree. It's just like Blue said. It's like a passion project. If you put in the people in charge who were fans from the whole series, and it's sometimes thought, the whole series went into the completely wrong direction with some Sonic games. Let's be honest, and they just feel like now it's on them to return the series back to glory, to its former glory. For example, it's like with the Mega Man games. What was it, 8 and 9, I think, right? That played and looked and behaved, and I think, was it even that you could have the slowdown and sprite flickering like on the NES? I think this was just a little bit overkill, but still, it doesn't cost as much, and there are always people who say, well, back then everything was better, which of course it wasn't, but still, it's relatively cheap to develop, I think, and I mean they got the press, and I think the sales even match up. So and if you put the fans in charge, as with Sonic, you get a game that just where the people who love the games just put everything they loved out and in there, and just made it a complete experience for them. It's like, like Blue said, it's like you look at a game and think, I could do this myself one day, and then the big day is there, and you even got the license to make it a true Sonic game. So I think this must have been a dream come true. And I mean, the game looks just like, it's one of the best 2D Sonic games ever.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. It's a crazy time that we live in because we're getting new NES games all the time. Like you said, with Mega Man 9 and 10 and with Bloodstained. They put that game out. I believe that's by the same developers of Mega Man 9 and 10. And they basically put out an NES Castlevania game, which is insane.
Yeah, so it's like when people talk about what is the greatest era of gaming, You know, was it the 8-bit era? Was it 16-bit era? Or was it newer? And I say right now, we're in the greatest because we basically have all of it.
Yeah, that's true.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And we have more people than ever before have the ability to make games. And so you're getting all these original input, original content, and we have new stuff and we have old stuff, you know, being brought forward to being modern. And yeah, it's just a really cool time to be a gamer.
Absolutely. You got so many options now, like you said, and also in terms of genres. It's not, space shooter, or is it a shooter underground, or what kind of shooter is it? But you got games like, I don't know, that Dragon Cancer and Gun Home. So you got this wild, crazy variety of styles from all kinds of people and which have all kinds of experience to offer. And I think, I mean, if we're here right now, how will this look in like 20 or 50 years? So it can only get even better, I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, speaking of all of these games that no single human being could ever feasibly play in a single lifetime, do you think that these retro games or retro experiences will continue to see the same amount of success that they do right now in like 50 years when there isn't anyone playing video games who grew up with an NES? Or are those people just going to like grow up with indie games like The Messenger and Shovel Knight and kind of have nostalgia for that because they experienced things that called back to the retro things when they were a kid? Are we going to still see people want to play those experiences? Like, will people ever get sick of playing Super Mario World over and over and buying it 15 times?
I think that's interesting because I've recently had a conversation with a friend of mine, and they said kids from today, they will look back at Candy Crush and Clash of Clans and say it was their defining games of their youth, and oh my god, this is so wrong. But of course they're right. And I think it's interesting because like you said, the Shovel Knight will be the retro game to look back to, and maybe they will even find out that, wait a second, they didn't have to do pixels. They chose to do pixels because, oh my god, it harkens even back further to this time of the 1980s who no one ever witnessed anymore. I think it will have a shift. I mean, but like I said, it's still weird looking at today's games that they one day will be retro. It's like Half-Life 2 being retro. So when someone told me that, Half-Life 2 is a retro game, I felt really old.
That's funny.
Well, who even knows what will happen in 50 years? Maybe in 50 years, anything that's not a VR game will be considered retro. And that's what everything will be, is VR probably by then.
Wow.
Yeah, and the first VR games that we're seeing now will be the retro games, the vomit-inducing games where people still haven't figured out how to do VR properly. So those will be the big retro experiences to test your stomach.
But at the same time, I don't think that the games, the important games in history, will ever go away because just humans. There's always some group of humans everywhere that cares about history and wants to maintain it. Because you still have, we still listen to music from 50 years ago. We still watch old black and white films and stuff like that. So I don't think they'll ever go away. They'll always have a place, but they may just not be as, everybody's go-to anymore.
That's true. I think it's like with black and white photography. You can still do it today, but it's just for people who are really into it because it's just a lot of work and so expensive. And I think also with old games, I mean, we're pretty lucky now that we have cartridges from 30 years that still work. And they are pretty well preserved. But now with games of today, I mean, just touching on the subject of archivability, if that's the correct term. I mean, with games like World of Warcraft, I think there are some servers still there maintained by individuals who try to recreate the day one experience. But I think this will be much harder to have a retro gaming experience in the future if your retro games are those big games as a service, because they might not exist anymore.
I don't know, did either of you guys read Ready Player One? Like not
No?
talking about
Okay.
watching the movie, but actually read the book.
No, I didn't either.
No.
I tried it. I just couldn't bear it. It's really it's written in a way that I just couldn't stand it, frankly.
Okay, well, in the book, they create the world of the Oasis, and it's just basically where it's so easy for anyone to create content, and so there's a constant stream of every old movie, every old television show, every old video game is just there, and anyone can play them at any time. And so, yeah, we may end up with a future that looks like that.
Yeah, I think so too. This might be. This might be a future I would be looking forward to, but then do we still have the time to watch, play old games?
Yeah.
That's a whole other thing.
Yeah. I think outside of preservation, which is obviously important, I think you're getting at something interesting, Blue, where like the DNA of the old games will kind of continue to make its way into the games that we play today, like Super Mario Odyssey, for example, the little 2D sections where you're playing as Sprite Mario. Like to any, 10-year-old these days, they'll be like, what the heck is this? Why is this in there? I don't know, but it's fun.
That's true, yeah.
Like those videos where they give the little kids the original Game Boy.
Yeah.
And little kid says,
Boy,
"Oh, I
that
feel
thing's a
sorry
brick these
for
days."
people in the past."
Oh, yes.
No colors.
Why isn't it exploding?
Yeah.
Or just a backlight. That would be great.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I really hope that our future generations do not become disillusioned with all the flashy visuals that lie in modern video game technology's future and can still appreciate some good sprite art.
Well,
Amen to that, brother.
If their parents raise them right.
Yeah, exactly. So, talking about kind of the just prevalence of all of these retro games that we're getting all the time now, and kind of how all of the older games are getting put on modern consoles, what do you guys think is the best way for these companies to pay homage to the retro games that have come before? So you've got like untouched re-releases on the minis, or the NES itself. So you got just like the same game on your current console, or like up-resed copies where you just have like HD collections like Shenmue 1 and 2 that came out recently. Or would you like to see more remasters and reimaginings like the Spyro trilogy or Shadow of the Colossus?
As for me, I would like to see both. So anyone could choose what they favor. I mean, for me personally, I think it's those kinds of reimaginings. They are great because they still have this feeling of the game. Because like we all know, some games are really great, or like Shenmue, they were just so detailed and so great in their presentation. But nowadays, if you're looking at the old one, it still looks kind of cheap because of the polygon count, but back then it was just this huge big open world, and I think this kind of reimagining and sensible ways of trying to modernize stuff that was just obnoxious from a nowadays perspective, or back then like I said, like having a save point system, something like this. So just usability stuff that's now pretty current, and everyone's expecting it. Like I said, when I played the GTA recently, you couldn't save in this game. You really had to finish a chapter, and it takes you like, if you're not playing too well, like 2.5 hours that you just have to sit there and stuff like that. But on the other hand, of course, there are still people who prefer the big old chunky look of, let's say, the PS1 era, where no texture is filtered and the frame rate is 30 if you're lucky. And yes, this is how I want my Silent Hill to look like. Of course. And I think, I mean, if it's possible, I think there are markets on both sides.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my point on it.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I think that it's important to preserve the game as it originally was. You don't ever want to lose where it came from, and you don't ever want to lose that ability to go back to your roots, so to speak. But at the same time, without the reimaginings and the reissues, things like that, probably there's a good chance that people in the future will lose touch with the original stories. A lot of the games, like especially from, in my opinion, from like the PlayStation 1 and the N64, they don't age well. And they need some help. They need some bringing up into the 21st century so that people can remember why they were fun. And so I think
that you just get past how it looks, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we got to get past the polygons and the nauseating cameras and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then everybody can remember why they were fun. But I think it is important to, if you really want to truly do justice to those old games, you got to hit that on both fronts.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, that's why I like the Crash trilogy so much, and why I'm excited for the Spyro trilogy so much, because it just completely bypasses the visual grading that can happen when you're playing an old PS1 game. It just completely bypasses that, and you're basically playing the same game in a very pretty fashion.
Yeah, so once if you update the graphics and the presentation and get, like Blue said, to the actual gameplay, to the actual mechanics that's just underneath this, and you don't have to squint and hope your aesthetic senses aren't offended too much. Once you get to the core of the game, there are a lot of good games. Just what comes to mind is this one game, Mule, M-U-L-E, on the Commodore 64. And it's a multiplayer game. I haven't played it with people. I just played it against some bots or so. But yeah, it looks very archaic, but it still plays great. And yeah, but I don't recommend anyone play it nowadays because it's just so clunky and it looks like a Commodore game. So yeah, absolutely. Just make it possible for people to get to what's good about a game without being distracted by what the technology of the day could offer.
Right.
Are there any like remasters or like collections that's appeal to you too?
I got one. but go ahead, Blue.
Well, I just got Ratchet and Clank the other day. I haven't played it yet, but I just downloaded it, and then I will be getting Spyro when it comes out for sure.
What did you say you just got the other day, Blue?
Ratchet and Clank.
Ratchet and Clank. Oh, nice. You got the remastered trilogy for PS3?
The PS4.
It was
PS4,
on sale. The new PS4 game.
Yeah,
gotcha.
it was on sale, so I'm pretty powerless against the sales.
Yeah, that falls into the like kind of the reimagining camp, which is interesting because a lot of that game is very different and tweaked in a way that doesn't exactly make it one-to-one to the original, but it's really cool seeing how they took the original and basically put it in a more modern framework.
Yeah, and so here's the other thing is that I never play the original.
Yeah.
So this will be my first introduction to the series.
Ooh, awesome.
And so by taking these old games and bringing them, to the 21st century, you open them up for whole new generations to try them, even though I wouldn't consider myself a whole new generation. But the point being is that you're getting a whole new audience for these old titles that wouldn't have access to them in their original form.
Absolutely.
The game that I just thought of, which I really liked, was the remaster of Day of the Tentacle.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because I never played the original one either.
Exactly, yeah.
I skipped it. I played Maniac Mansion, but was horribly confused. I mean, when it came out, I didn't really know much English and was just walking around the house and taking a long time achieving nothing. And so I skipped Day of the Tentacle and then Monkey Island, of course, I played. But now that I played the remaster, and it just it's just amazing. It looks exactly like how I remembered the screenshots of the first one, and then you switch back and forth to how pixely and blocky and horrible it actually was. But it still plays like pretty modern adventure game with just some minor annoyances here and there where you think, how should I know? I have no idea however I should come up with this solution. But I mean, this is, if 90% of the games make sense to you, especially in adventure games, this is quite good. But yeah, with the remasters from Double Fine, also with a full throttle.
Mm-hmm.
I still got it. I still have it on my pile of shame to play. But it's just amazing how still, if you just have a few more pixels on screen, how well they still hold up.
Yeah, totally. They also have the entirety of Maniac Mansion within Day of the Tentacle.
Yes, even with the first one, it boggles my mind. There you can see how much technology really made big strides back then from switching from 8-bit to 16-bit, that it could fit the whole previous game into the other game as an Easter egg.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, I like seeing these remasters make their way in forms that I can play them more accessibly, like, for example, Shadow of the Colossus is a game that I like a lot, and I played it through 2 times initially on the PS2, and then they came out with the PS3 Eco and Shadow of the Colossus in HD, and so I played through Shadow of the Colossus 2 more times there, and then they came out with it on PS4, and I'm just going to have to play it again there someday. I haven't yet, but I'd love to have that experience again, an excuse to have that experience again, and give them more of my money, because I love that game.
Of course.
Another platinum for you, right?
Exactly. Maybe someday. I have not gotten a Shadow of the Colossus Platinum yet, but I'd like to think that the remaster on PS4 will be my opportunity.
I have complete faith in you.
Go for it.
Thank you. That Ratchet & Clank game is a pretty easy platinum. It's not too bad. You have to play through the game twice, I believe. So
oh, I see.
Okay.
If you've got that in you, then it's doable. I've gotten every main Ratchet & Clank Platinum, courtesy of the trilogy on PS3. The Ratchet & Clank 1, 2, and 3 was released in HD on PS3, and that gave me an opportunity to experience them in their entirety for the first time. I had played 1 and 2 on PS2 initially, but because of the HD trilogy, I was able to go through every single one all the way through and enjoy my experience a lot, and this time with trophies, with the added incentive.
Nice. Oh my god. As soon as they start putting achievements into old games,
that's what breaks me. Yeah.
Maybe it will be my very first PS4 Platinum.
Ooh, I can't wait. I'm gonna be listening very closely to your thoughts on that Ratchet & Clank game, Blue.
Okay, I will let you know.
I hope you like it. Yeah, I hope
sure
you like
I
it.
will. I love platformers, so I really don't have any doubt that it will be enjoyable for me.
Yeah, it looks great too. It's a very pretty game. There's other HD stuff that I just like seeing come this way. Not only games that I like revisiting, like Shadow of the Colossus or Ratchet & Clank, but I also like being able to experience experiences that I haven't yet, like you, Blue, where Shenmue 1 and 2 just came to PS4 and Xbox One and PC, and those are games that I've never played, but I'd really like to experience because I've heard just amazing things about them. And with the Shenmue 3 Kickstarter doing gangbusters, it really makes me want to figure out where that series came from and why it caused so many people to love it so much.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
the remasters let me do that.
Yeah, that's a great point because you get to finally see what the big deal is after you've been hearing people talk about games for years and years and years.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is true also, like we were saying with retro games and the accessibility. I've heard great stuff about this old Unix game, which was Rogue. And
Rogue, yep.
Yeah, and I tried, I made some crazy gymnastics, like running a BSD 4.2 Unix in a virtual machine and then telnetting into it with an VTX1 terminal emulator, trying it was a project. Let's say it was a project, and then it didn't quite work because because Rogue needs to address the individual characters on the screen, and with the telnet it just prints out a new line when you step left or right. And thankfully I found out that there was of course a DOS version from 1983 which even had color. It didn't have sound or graphics, but yeah. So the accessibility I think is quite quite a big thing, because like I think this was L. Lowe once said, why the puzzles in some of his adventure games are so hard, and he said, well, my puzzles are for people who already know how to run my games in DOS, so this is the bar.
Interesting.
And it's not easy to run a game on DOS. Sometimes you had to think, do I want 265, 56?
256.
256, thanks. 256 colors or mouse. And you somehow you had to cram it onto your boot floppy. Wow. And I mean, I like to say, the golden days where you had to configure your auto-exec bet and config sys and put it on a floppy. Yeah. But really, I mean, we don't want those days back. You just want to double-click something or launch it with a tap on your controller and want the experience. Yeah. And I think it's not a big deal for games like Super Mario, because, like you said, on every virtual console there will be a Super Mario game, and this isn't going away or even endangered in some way. But I think there are a lot of obscure DOS games who have a very narrow niche audience, and I think there are some hidden gems in there, but maybe there was just something wrong with their presentation back then, or just some really clunky interface. Rogue, I'm looking at you. And this is left them in obscurity, and I would be very interested in just finding hidden gems that were like 30 years there and no one ever quite noticed them.
That sounds like that would actually be a really fascinating, like, blog series. Project like that. That would be interesting. Yeah. I would read that. I am not qualified to write it, but I would read that.
Yeah. What I can recommend here, or maybe even plug, is the DOS Game Club. Do you have heard of this?
No.
This, they invited me because I was just being relentless on Twitter, asking if anyone wanted me on their podcast. and they invited me to their DOS Games podcast, and it's our DOS Games Game Club, and it's DOS Game Club, and this is exactly like I said, they just take recommendations. I mean, they're doing this like one game a month and then doing a podcast on it with some guests, and this is really great because of course the big games like Doom and SimCity, but there was also Nightmare 3D, which I've never heard of, and it's and I think this is a good place to start if in this community, if you're looking for good old DOS gems no one has ever heard of, because the community is there of old farts enjoying DOS games.
That's awesome.
So it's the DOS Club.
It's DOSGameClub.com or .org.
Okay.
DOS Game Club?
DOS Game Club. I'm totally going to check them out. That sounds interesting.
Really cool. You know you're on the right page if it looks like a DOS install menu.
Okay.
That's funny. Yeah, the DOS space just fascinates me because I never played a single DOS game until I was like 18.
Oh.
So that was like not a part of my childhood at all.
You're still young, so it's forgiven.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is you at 18 is not that long ago still.
4 years ago, yeah. Well, one thing that I think about a lot, because of a piece that I read not too long ago, I forget where it was or what the piece was called, but it was about a guy who had a kid, and video games were very important to him, and so he wanted to integrate his son into the video gaming world, but he wanted to do it very deliberately, and he wanted to do it in a very careful manner. So how he did it was he would only expose his child to like the NES for the first few years, and then he would like gradually introduce like the Super Nintendo, and then after that the Nintendo 64.
Exactly how I would have done it.
Exactly. Yeah, is that how you would have done it, Phil? Why is that?
Because why should have kids from today, why should they have it better than we had it back then? And this plan would work perfectly if we just keep the kid in total isolation. Because
the
first time they are on the schoolyard and get introduced to Pokemon, well, there goes your upbringing.
Yep. No
going to friends'
sleepovers,
houses.
no nothing.
Exactly.
Never.
That's funny.
But I think the piece said that he noticed that his son actually ended up being really good at modern games after like being exposed to these trials by fire on the NES and Super Nintendo.
Interesting. Oh, of course, yeah. Those games were relentless.
Yeah. Do you think it's something I think about a lot because I've got a younger brother who just doesn't have appreciation for like Super Nintendo stuff or like stuff that just doesn't have like the 3D graphics that he's accustomed to with like Fortnite and Call of Duty. And like I remember the first time he played Minecraft, he was really turned off to it because he saw the graphics and he was like, this looks really bad. Why would anyone want to play this? And then he sat down and played it for a little bit and he ended up like falling in love with it and playing it for like 3 years straight. But do you think it's possible for people to have an appreciation for these retro games when they were not part of their childhood?
Absolutely. But I think, it's just this initial hurdle of the presentation, like we said before. If you can love a game even for what it looks like, then it must be a great game. And but it's interesting because when you step back and play games that were just like heralded as those big technical achievements back then, and then you play them like 20 years later, and you see, well, if the presentation nowadays looks decent maybe, but there's no game down below. So I think this also, especially in retro games, this can be very revealing. Who was just trying to go for just for cheap looks in a way. Of course, not too cheap back then. But still, some games. Like I said, I played Rogue on the DOS, just wanted to try it out, and I binged on this game for a week. I dreamed in ASCII characters. It was way too much. Yeah,
that's insane.
Yeah, and I never thought that I could. I mean, I took a look at Dwarf Fortress and said, "Oh, it looks really horrible," but it looks also interesting. Then I tried it and I thought, "Yeah, it's way too much in there," and I will never even start. It's like the tip of the iceberg. I will never get into it. And Rogue looks like it, but it's so archaic and it's really easy. I likened it to Diablo in a way, because you just start, name your character, and off you go. You don't have to distribute some kind of ability points or some. How should I know? I've never played it. I don't know if I need toaster repair skills.
Yeah.
I think Wasteland was with the toaster repair skills. And
really?
At one point you really needed it. And I mean, this is just horrible game design that you have to have a completely useless skill that you only need, I think, in the ending. I mean, this is you would never be able to get away with this today.
Yeah.
But I think this is also now coming back to retro games. Some games make it hard to enjoy them because. Sometimes there was just this one thing in their game design that was just really horrible. I mean, if you play the first Commander Keen series, it was, a technical achievement back then, of course. I mean, smooth scrolling on PCs in DOS, it was 1990. But from a perspective of level design and controls and it was just horrible. It was just a mean game. There were dead ends and traps and something. It felt like a Sierra game. It's like the game wants to kill you, and you're not playing against the game, but against the level designer themselves. This is this fine balance of this is a challenging level, and the level designer hates everyone. So there you go.
That's awesome.
That's really funny. What do you think about that, Blue? Do you think that a fresh new human being could just play a Super Nintendo game after seeing everything else that comes out today and love it?
I think so, because I think a lot of the Super Nintendo games specifically hold up really, really well.
Totally.
Like the Donkey Kong Country trilogy, for one. I think those games are just so amazing. Even today, you go back and play them, and without any sort of inkling that they were, I don't know, 25 years ago or whatever it was. And I think a lot of like the Disney Afternoons games, like there's Lion King, there's Aladdin, or if you go back to the NES, there's like the Rescue Rangers and Darkwing Duck, those kind of games, DuckTales, which got its own remaster.
I think, was it? Yeah.
That sounds right.
But I think those games hold up just about as well today as they used to. And also a lot of the RPGs on the Super Nintendo, like Chrono Trigger or the Final Fantasies or Earthbound. And so I think that if somebody's on the fence about playing older games, and then if you are able to introduce them to like a gateway game, and I think it's totally possible.
That warms my heart. That makes me happy.
Yeah, me too. There's still hope for.
I believe in humanity.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good way to end the retro conversation. Did either of you two have anything else you wanted to say about the retro games?
No, just they're awesome and you should play them if you haven't.
Absolutely.
I second that. Absolutely. Just try it out, and it can only get better.
Yeah. Well, without further ado, I guess that will do it for this episode 55 of GamerHeads. Phil, why don't you tell people how they can get a hold of you and where they can find more of you?
Why, thank you. Well, I'm on Twitter. My Twitter handle is at Pixel Prophecy. But I also have a YouTube channel, because nowadays everyone has a YouTube channel where I make videos about my experiences with game jams and a lot of stuff about gaming. So this is also just YouTube Pixel Prophecy. So I think if you want to find me, you will find me. That sounds a little bit sinister.
No.
It's only sinister if you're saying, I will find you.
Yeah.
Oh, fair enough.
That's good. Yeah, Pixel Prophecy is a good name because you can find it pretty easily.
I think there was even a Apple iPhone game with the same name, and I
really
found out way much later when I started, and I think I completely destroyed their SAO.
Yeah. Nice. You came up on top, Phil.
Yeah, for once.
How can people get a hold of you, Blue?
You can find me at Twitter. My handle is at WritersView, and it's spelled with a Y, so WRY. And then also I have a website, writersview.com.
Perfect. And that's it for this episode of the GamerHeads. If you want to get in touch with us, we're on Twitter at GamerHeadsPC. You can reach out to us on Facebook at facebook.com/GamerHeadsPodcast, or you can email us at info@GamerHeadsPodcast.com. But that's it for this episode. GamerHeads out.